can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
You know, and
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon.
It's not
Which is a
black
cool
and
thing.
white. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
Space is fake AF. Space is fake AF.
There's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
you see the gas.
It don't let it. Say the sky was not the limit. We fly to the moon in another second, but we haven't been back.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining. It's 10:33, 3:30 p.m. No, sorry, March 30th, 10:33. We were on earlier today. In fact, earlier today, I got a phone call from 5 Minutes of Fame, and he said, "Oh, I thought I was trying to call my doctor." So he mixed up Dr. Oz and Tim Osmond on his speed dial. Let's see who's here. SpongeBob, Brojetta, AJ206, Sister D, Lean Dion, Diana South, Restless Bear. Yeah, text message notifications went out, Patreon notices, and anyone who's on the newsletter should be showing up here shortly. It's a brand new YouTube channel. They shot down 3 of our channels last week. And this always happens before a big psyop. And what was the big psyop? I mean, was it the slap? Do they not want Infinite Plane Radio's commentary on the Illuminati ritual, Hollyweird drama? I mean, that's really what we're looking at. We're looking at Hollyweird drama covering up for what is actually an occult ritual, which we've been discussing on this channel. And more has also been revealed in our research. But let me bring up this coincidence before we get any further. In case anybody here thinks that this is real, everybody's a winner in this thing. The ratings, the movie King Richard, I'm sure that's going to do very well. But listen to this. So Chris Rock, this is a direct quote from and I'll pull up the article here, but it's just by coincidence. Rock was booked to play several shows in Boston beginning Wednesday before he embarks on his Ego Death World Tour. This is the first time that Chris Rock has gone on the road in 5 years. Now think about that, ego death. They're describing him as taciturn. Like he really didn't have any egoic reaction. He didn't act miffed or offended. He played it off. It was super cool. So, as far as I'm concerned, that man is egoless. That was a great response to a provocation. But now check this out, though. It's a coincidence that he's about to go on tour, and then he has this drama. Kind of like it's always a coincidence that right before you're going to release an album, you're going to fake die. Well, listen to this. The ticket sales went up from $49.50. Scalpers put them on StubHub, and they went up to $8,000. $800 to $8,000. So the demand was high because they think that this first show is going to be a good one because it will be his first public response to the Will Smith slap. So this should be interesting. But again, if you had purchased some of those tickets for $50 for his Ego Death Tour, you could be flipping them for $8,000. So if this doesn't tell you the whole thing's a hoax, then nothing will, because the money always gives it away. All right, let's see here. Dave Sim says, what's the new YouTube channel name? Just Infinite Plane Radio. I'm always going to name it the same thing. We could call it Infinite Plane Radio number 119. Is that the number we're on? I think we're getting close. 3 channels, 2 strikes each, 2 weeks. They put us down. Lean Dion says the IPS slaps. Yep. That's why they didn't want us down. They didn't want us to talk about the stuff, so they pulled our channels down. They didn't want us to be able to offer commentary that might unravel this thing, which it's happening anyway. Even complete blue pill normies who believe everything they see are having a hard time believing this thing, which is funny. You know, it's kind of like one of these. It's like a litmus test just to see how awake people actually are. And so you have the outrage coming from the Whoopi Goldberg, Howard Stern, Jim Carrey, and I was just reading some more moral outrage from Amy Schumer, who's in shock. Amy Schumer, supposedly she's a comedian. Well, she can't get over the trauma. So a lot of people are traumatized. Now, it is an unsightly thing to see a comedian being slapped because it's like, wait, I thought this was free speech. And I think this is what they're actually setting the stage for. In fact, Kathy Griffin is also pretty terrified by this thing. She says something to the effect of, do we now have to worry about the next comedian to get slapped? Now, coming from someone who posed with a severed head of Trump, it doesn't really mean too much, but it just shows you that these people are reading lines. They don't actually believe this crap. But I think this is raising the question of whether or not free speech ought to be free speech. Like, free speech is unmasked speech. And they want us to wear masks on the internet, as in they want us to have the filter so we don't spread dangerous misinformation, malinformation, disinfo. So why wouldn't they want the comedians to be held to the same standard? And specifically comedians, because they're the ones who can kind of balloon test outrageous ideas and get a pass. So I think this is an anti-free speech thing as well. They want to slap you on the mouth. Oh, by the way, happy Darth Day. Our dear leader, Klaus Schwab, up there at the World Economic Forum 666 is having his, what's his birthday? What's his public age? We know these people are immortal. He's been around since what? Several ages ago. Like quite literally. What was it, Pisces? Before Pisces, it was what, the age of the... I'm not big onto astrology, but they are. And the Great Reset was certainly timed with the age of Aquarius. I'm placing him back at maybe 4,000. Now, I don't know if they keep the same bodies or if they do serial reincarnation. Like they just have their soul jacked into a new body when this one gets old. I actually read something. I had this very bizarre book, and I can't find it now. And it was about a group called the Illuminati of Thanateros, and it meant love and death or something. But there was some spell in there. I think it was called the Red Rite. And I don't know if people do this stuff, but it described this process of transferring one's soul into the unborn in order to have another go at life and continue where you left off. And it even talked about ensuring that your situation is there for your reception and your proper, I believe it was reintegration or something. Fascinating stuff. But there are people who believe in reincarnation, that's for sure. Is it random? All right, let me go through the... Okay, Dustin Malatesta says, Smith smites Christ. Oh, Chris. Yeah, interesting. I think there's a lot of interesting things that we'll get into here when you look at the symbolism in the names. Like Will Smith. Well, he's defending Venus in the movie. Venus, goddess of protection, and also blacksmiths. So you have a blacksmith, protection is the theme for Venus in the movie. And the real life version for this particular event, which was Jada wearing an emerald dress. Again, jade, green, emerald, all of this stuff relates to Venus. And then Venus was in the bleachers, she's in the stands, flashing her breast with a triangle form made with her arms, the way they were interlocked, and it looked like she was sending a signal. And we'll get into all of this stuff. Wayne Dion says, the masses fail the test repeatedly. Oh, the litmus test. Yeah, they're not awake. No, they're quite literally living in a dream world. And that's what we're talking about. And for people who think that's hyperbole, I would recommend doing a little research into people who are in hostage situations, Stockholm Syndrome, or people who are in cults. There is a point where you are in a dream world. And it's often hard for people to reintegrate after leaving a cult, so they go from one to the next. They go from one bad relationship to the next. And I think that collectively mankind is in a codependent relationship with government through the mass media trauma machine. Because that's all it does, is it promotes the fight or flight response and then directs the sheep accordingly. Only those who need the fight or flight, the ones who are motivated by who are ambitious or motivated by greed or whatever, they have ways of moving them as well. But they get all the sheep going the same direction. And it's so perfectly timed. I mean, look at this psyop. Look at this particular slap and how it has. I mean, really, I think this cured Putin. I was asking that question last month or earlier this month. I was like, okay, wait. It seems to me that COVID killed radical Islam. Boom. And then Putin killed COVID. So what's going to get rid of? What's going to cure Putin? So, yeah, COVID-19 cured radical Islam. Putin cured COVID. What's going to cure Putin? And it might be the slap. I think that's how serious this thing is. It seems unserious, but it's not. And we'll get into why. I think this ties into a lot of other things, metascript-wise. But again, by coincidence, he was about to go on tour. And I remarked on this day one, but here's a quote. In a tearful acceptance speech. Now, they don't mention that he's quivering his bottom lip like a pro, earning that Oscar, and that he's practically clawing at his eyeballs to get the tears out. I'm surprised it wasn't just tears of blood. Did you see the way his finger pulled at his eyelid? Kind of like Obama did post Sandy Hook. Anyway, in a tearful acceptance speech, Smith apologized to the Academy and his fellow Best Actor nominees, but he stopped short of mentioning Rock. In his remarks, he attempted to connect the altercation to his on-screen character in King Richard. Yeah, this is not a coincidence. Quote, Richard Williams was a fierce defender of his family. Oh, one more thing. And I probably have this in Discord. If you listen to the audio, Chris, it sounds like he calls him Richard right before the slap. Anyway, Richard Williams was a fierce defender of his family, Smith said. Art imitates life. I looked like the crazy father, just like they said about Richard Williams. How convenient, right? I mean, it's a good thing he didn't play Mike Myers, because then I guess we could presume that Chris would have been hacked, stabbed. All right, let's continue. Now, this is all probably foreshadowing to something bigger. I think the slap may pertain to something. Aline Dion says the coming catastrophe, perhaps. Yeah, so the coming catastrophe was something referred to by William Shatner, speaking of Michael Myers, and he said when he was in space, the Earth looks super fragile, and that he doesn't know if it's going to survive the coming catastrophe, or he knows something about the coming catastrophe. Let me bring this up. Captain Kirk, who went up to fake space. Why did William Shatner mention the coming catastrophic event? The coming catastrophe. The real reason Captain Kirk went to space. A number of people caught on to this and were wondering, what is this guy actually talking about? So, it says here, something about the coming catastrophe. I don't know, maybe I figured he was seeing global warming. That's kind of the idea that we're given here, is that when you get up high enough, then you can see how bad it all looks, which is kind of counterintuitive. It's like, if global warming was that bad, shouldn't we be able to tell? Like, the ocean levels aren't rising. And yet, when you go to space, way up there, you can see from way far away. Like, it's a remote diagnosis. I don't get it. Garrett Summer said, I had a vision of the sheep of the world. It has all been scripted. Yeah, I believe so. Well, scripted as in they're following a script. But the thing about the script, and this is the key point here, is that it is timed with the zodiac and this astrotheological story revolving around the personification of the heavenly bodies. So it has an objective connection to reality. I mean, that's why I brought up Klaus Schwab and this great reset, because it was all timed with the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. And these are not coincidental alignments. It was a specific conjunction that specifically tied in to the Christ story and year zero because of the timing of it and the winter solstice. And more recently, last month, on the 22nd, we had the Pluto return, which put it exactly at the point where it was in 1776, July 4th. And I think right now, the big split, the big crack, is between 1776 and 1619, two competing visions for the world. And this ties in also to this space race. Are we going to go up into space? Is humanity going to unite as one, as capitalists or communists? Are we going to? And look, we've been given examples, Bezos, Branson, Musk, of what they're going to do with this money. Are billionaires sustainable? And they flaunt their wealth on purpose. Bezos with his mega yacht, which looks like a Titanic. And this all ties in, of course, to this constant reference to the Earth as being fragile. The Earth is the Titanic. The West is a Titanic. They use this as a metaphor. But in the movie Don't Look Up, it was the Earth. And Leonardo DiCaprio, who was in the movie The Titanic, is in the role of a Noah-like character, a scientist, warning the world that we must do something to stop the comet. Now, they don't listen to the scientist, so they all die. Nope, they listen to the greedy capitalists who want to mine the comet so they have more stuff to make cell phones with, smartphones with. Now you can contrast that with the other movie, Moonfall, which has a happier ending. But in Moonfall, the scientist looks like a clone of the other guy. Same archetype. It's like beard, unshaven, kind of neck bearded, nerdy guy, very nervous. This guy's agoraphobic in Don't Look Up. And in Moonfall, both of these characters are constantly taking pills for their nervousness. And the whole subtext is, if you knew what the scientist knew, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night. You would be scared of the sky. So anyway, they use these same characters. By the way, Moonfall, world gets saved by a scientist. Look up the actor, happens to be 33. They have an obsession with 33-year-old saviors, if you haven't noticed. In fact, a singer just died from The Wanted. I think his name was Tom Parker. Again, the name Tom means twin. Died at 33. Twin, 33, lots of interesting symbolism in these things. The Twin Towers were 33 when they pulled them. And it all has to do with this ritual of this phoenix, the burning down of the old, building back better, as Klaus Schwab would say. Again, it's his birthday. Happy Darth Day, Klaus Schwab. All right, so let's continue here. Kathy Griffin says, "Let me tell you something. It's a very bad practice to walk up on a stage and physically assault a comedian. Now we all have to worry about who wants to be the next Will Smith in comedy clubs and theaters." Again, this is Kathy Griffin. Whenever I think of her, let me see if I can find it. There's a few directions we can go with this particular harpy, but she's pictured here with a severed head. So when I see these lefties calling for, here we go, decorum, how can we allow these rules to be broken? Acting all offended, acting traumatized, like Amy Schumer. It's like, no, these people are arsonists when it comes to free speech. They're here to destroy the very notion of free speech as a positive value. Again, they want free speech to be the equivalent of unmasked speech. It's inherently dangerous, and why aren't you wearing your mask? Flat Bastard says, if it shows live at the very top left, it's live. That's correct. All right, so let us continue. According to the news media, the mainstream news, Will Smith's slap was not to promote an alopecia medicine by Pfizer. So some people said that Pfizer was going to make some money off this thing, but mainstream sources say it's not true. We'll see. Alex Jones refuses to appear at a deposition because he said it would cause him significant stress. Well, now they're going to fine him $25,000 a day until he shows up. Now he gets the money back if he shows up, and it's just a virtual appearance. But don't worry, he sold enough Gwyneth Paltrow sex goop, relabeled as super male vitality, over the last 3 years to pay up. I mean, he offered 13 of the Sandy hookers, I think $120,000 a pop, and they said no. Of course not. It's not enough money. Not that it's about money. A QAnon conspiracy theorists think infamous Oscar slap was a hoax because Will Smith is actually dead. Yeah, I was wondering about this. See, there's a list going around of all the celebrities, all the baby eaters, all the bad guys that have already been killed by Q and by Trump. So they're out there doing military tribunals, but they don't want to shock us. So they hire actors to replace those people. This is the world of Q. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock on stage at the 94th Academy Awards on Sunday. But now QAnoners are weighing in their own conspiracy theories about the incident. Look, if you're sick of Q, go to marcusgoldfinch.icu and tweet it. Just share that. I mean, this is something I'm not going to spend time on tonight, but we are at a point where I have direct evidence that Q knows Ivanka. And it's very significant given that right now the Trumps are under intense scrutiny. They're looking at another Watergate. I mean, Nixon was only hiding, 18 minutes of tape? Trump's got to account for 7 hours and 37 minutes. And take note of that really quick. 737. I don't know what that number means, but the fact that 7 hours and 37 minutes are missing might mean something. Garrett says Chris Rock World Tour announced immediately. Yeah, I was saying that people were scalping the tickets from $49 to $8,000 because the first show is going to be huge. No coincidences. All right, but anyway, Trump is someone, and his family as well, who is personally in Q's circle. Like, Q is someone who, for a very good reason, doesn't directly interact with people because it would compromise the whole thing. The very fact that Trump knows Q is damning, and as far as it takes away all of his plausible deniability about any involvement with the PSYOP of 1-6. It tells you also that he's an insider, but he's playing into the script. Let me go ahead and make a quick phone call live. I generally don't do this. I mean, it might be considered rude. However, this is a very extraordinary situation because I have here a few things. One, others have also caught on to this, that George News replaced Q. And again, George News is the one that replaced George Magazine from JFK Jr. But what gets even more interesting here is that Trump's social media guy, Dan Scavino, was sending out tweets that reference Q drops by the timestamps. And this was going on for a couple of years. And I was wondering, when is the media going to pick up on this? Well, they have. I think Liz Cheney's even picked up on it. So now they figured this thing out, and it's only a matter of time until George News gets brought up. And I have email exchanges between George News and Ivanka and a few other things that they inadvertently leaked through screen caps and other things. But anyway, I compiled it all. I have admissions of guilt, and the best part of all, and so if you hate Q, this is why you need to get behind this. Again, marcusgoldfinch.icu, is that I have an email confessional, including email headers about this person, which proves everything that I say, but he also admits to dozens and dozens of instances of committing felony identity theft. So this is a 4th-degree felony. This guy could serve time in prison, most likely will, and pay a bunch of fees. So if you want to see Q dragged into the light and thrown in jail and create a huge mess for the whole Trump crime family, go to marcusgoldfinch.icu and tweet this to someone you think might find it interesting, because the evidence is all here. The guy got a key to the White House from Donald Trump. He got lapel pins from Mike Pence. He was at Trump's last birthday party, even recorded it. So, like I said, it's all going to have to come out very soon. And I think right now might be a good time because Ivanka's trending, Donald Jr.'s trending, and they all know each other, and I can prove it. And I've been in contact with some other people who have arrived at similar conclusions, and they all agree with me that what damns him is his relentless cyber squatting campaign against the Infinite Plane Society. I mean, really a dumb foot bullet if you think about it. Yes, Q has been obsessively buying up domains associated with this channel, because of an ongoing dispute that pre-existed his gig here with Q, whoever this guy really is, he's been doing this type of intel work, and he was already trying to drive me off the internet. Well, he got the wrong person, because all of his cyber squatting has made it so that he's essentially in possession of stolen property. Domain squatting is property theft, and it's a federally protected thing. You can't just steal someone's domain, and there will be repercussions. And what's more, he rebought all the domains, so he can't drop this stuff. He can't throw the evidence in the river. He's screwed. So anyway, just putting it out there, if you're sick of all this QAnon nonsense, I think we could make it a lot more interesting, because look where they're at. Anyway, let's see what they say. We're talking about this QAnon story that Will Smith has already been killed. Okay, here we go. They claim the incident was a setup. The group has long been known for their online conspiracy theories accusing celebrities of child trafficking. A member of this channel on Telegram said that Smith slapped Rock to boost ratings and make everybody talk about Will Smith and Chris Rock in Hollywood, and to stop talking about Trump. User added, something big is about to drop. So this is from the QAnon Great Awakenings message board. And someone else said, it's not a fake incident, but definitely a clone, because Will Smith is dead. So there's your QAnon hot take on the incident. I mean, who are these people? And the thing is, they are provably dupes at this point. If you're a believer in QAnon and you don't know who Goldfinch is, then you don't know. You're being led around by some mainstream media government plan. This guy was in movies, Fast and the Furious. He was a stunt actor, Xena the Warrior Princess, very well known, very well established. My point is, it's not JFK Jr. JFK is not going to come back to save anybody. And the whole Q movement, obviously, and we can see now, again, I brought this up this morning, it was so they could broad brush the last vestiges of nationalism as MAGA ban, the American Taliban. And they've done it. And they brought out this new idea of the white Al-Qaeda, vanilla ISIS, domestic violent extremist threat. Anti-vaxxers and domestic terrorists are aligning. It's from Dame Magazine. I'm just following the trends to see where they're going with these stories, and you can see, yes, it's all a setup. Another reason to expose the whole Q thing as a major psyop. Look, I don't think this was supposed to leak. That's why it's a big deal. We're trying to expose the actor behind this big charade. O.J. Simpson says he understands where Will Smith was coming from on his Oscars attack on Chris Rock. Chris Rock's 57, by the way. Any significance there? There is, but that's a deep meta script. But there is interesting bits of patterning in here, and we'll go into all these things. If you haven't watched King Richard, I kind of would recommend it for full context here, because he was playing King Richard before he hung out on the side of the stage with Denzel Washington, who had just played Macbeth. And by the way, Chris complimented Denzel and mentioned Macbeth, which of course brought about the Macbeth curse. That was one of the things that they had said. Not supposed to say Macbeth in the theater. But it's also, I think, interesting though, just that you had this King Macbeth, King Richard, the Macbeth curse, all thrown in. Very, very interesting. Okay, O.J. Simpson again understands where Will Smith was coming from. Let me go ahead and take a look at that. Now, I don't think he meant in the violent attack. I hope not. Anybody condoning this type of violence is in the wrong. I mean, I know it's all fake, but, real or not, this is a very poor example to set, that if somebody says something that goes too far and it offends the mob can slap. I mean, I was fine with snowflakes. Not really. I mean, I was annoyed that the snowflakes had the power to censor me, but at least the snowflakes are just snowflakes. You can kind of just let them go and lick their wounds. They get their way, you get your strike, nothing happens. But now you got to worry about the snowflakes fighting words with fists or slaps. Let's see here. I'm going through your comments. I'm willing to bet that Will Smith isn't a very conservative-leaning person. I mean, the free speech thing has just gone out the window in the last couple of years. Like, we can't have free speech when there's an emergency. Can't have free speech if it offends people. It's like, wait, you don't need protections for inoffensive speech, do you? Okay, let's see here. O.J. Simpson says he understands where Will Smith is coming from in his attack on Chris Rock. And he's also been tempted to fight back against comedians who've made him the butt of jokes. Good to know. I'm not going to say anything bad about O.J. Although my theory has been that O.J. Simpson lives in the basement of Megyn Kelly, or lived there, that he wasn't actually in jail. So if you didn't know, Megyn Kelly from Fox News is the reincarnation of Nicole Brown Simpson. And this is all just another race war psyop. They sure love their callbacks. You know, by the way, in the movie King Richard, they actually show the Rodney King beating. Just a heads up, because the Rodney King beating's anniversary, I guess what, 32nd anniversary would it be? The anniversary is today, 3/30. It's also the anniversary of those 3 lodges that were torched by Mac Parhar's buddy in Vancouver. It's Van Gogh's birthday, and it's, let's see, they passed the George Floyd Act on this day also. And this is a very interesting day, the 3/30 thing. We've noticed this before. These dates are always chosen because of their numerical value when it comes to these rituals, these obsessive compulsive witches and warlocks behind the media. I mean, how else can you describe them? Lane Dion says no jokes about Mike Tyson. You know, I think Mike Tyson makes jokes about himself. I just saw something. I got to check this. I thought he was selling some THC gummies that looked like ears. Yeah, Mike Tyson is selling weed gummies in the shape of a bitten ear. Now, this is going to mess with the Mandela affected, because the Mandela affected believe that Mike Tyson literally bit off the guy's ear, which didn't actually happen. And so the bite fight, if you remember that. But no, this is going to mess with them. Mike's ears have a bite mark at the top of the gummy, right where he took off a piece of Holyfield's cartilage. Ear-shaped edibles called Mike Bites, complete with a missing chunk. It has Tyson's approval, and he says the ears taste good. Okay, it's a piece of the ear, I guess. It says this 1997 match resumed after Tyson bit off a piece of Hollywood's ear. Could that have been faked? Has anybody here auto-hoaxed that thing? Or does it not meet the... Here we go. The standard of evidence. Like, is it that great of a claim to say that Mike Tyson bit someone's ear in a match? I don't know. Yeah, Mike Bites. I thought it was beef jerky when I first saw it. And I was like, I would never go for that. That's like simulated cannibalism as it is. Phase Polarizer says Mike is hosting next year's Oscars. All right, let us continue. Going through my minds.com. I'll open phones here shortly. Now, this is a speech from Nebraska State Senator Bruce Bostelman. So apparently some of these people are so behind when it comes to memes. Like, they don't know when it's sarcastic. This is why, like, you can blame this guy for the Alex Steins of the world. Well, Alex Stein. He's like the only one. Alex Stein goes out there and he cringe raps about things, basically doing a parody of extremism, pretending to be a far liberal, pro-vax junkie. He just pretends to, well, he embodies all these caricatures of the far left, and they usually think he's being legit, so they love him. And the other side thinks it's funny, so they share it. He gets shared because, like I'm saying, some people just don't get satire or sarcasm. And here's an example of that one. This guy saw some meme about how furries at school the school where he teaches. And furries are, of course, people who dress up as animals. They identify as animals. Well, he got some memo that was a joke that said that the furries were requesting litter boxes. And listen to his outrage.
Where school children dress up as animals, cats or dogs, during the school day. They meow and they bark, and they interact with their school, with the teachers and that in this fashion. And now schools are wanting to put litter boxes in the schools for these children to use. How is this sanitary?
How is this sanitary, he says. He goes on for a few minutes, and I mean, this would be funny if this was Alex Stein. No, this guy actually, and this is a state senator, he actually thinks that there's a demand for litter boxes in schools to accommodate the students that identify as kittens.
I'm going to have a discussion with CEO Smith about this. This is something I think, how can schools allow this to happen? I think it's very disruptive within the school system. I think it's very disruptive within the classes. I even heard from one person here recently said that a student identified as a cat and wanted a litter box, and the school didn't provide the litter box, so the student went ahead and defecated on the floor. Really? Really?
Now, I guess in his defense, this, to me, almost doesn't sound unbelievable. It's another one of these things. Do we need to call this a hoax? Do we need to think, when you get a claim like that, the students want litter boxes. Like, is it that outside of the status quo? And maybe this guy's got a point. Like, maybe he's more right than not.
School administrators, what is going on? Nebraska Department of Education, what is going on? State Board of Education, what is going on? If some kids can't wear American flag to walk through the school on their shirt, and you keep them out of school, and you kick them out of school, but it's okay if they wear a cat costume, and that's fine, and you have a litter box for them, and that's fine.
Okay, so yes, I can understand the problem here. You can't wear an American flag and walk through the school without getting kicked out for committing a hate crime and a racism. But if you dress up like a cat and you defecate in a litter box, yeah, you're cool. Unbelievable. Superintendent denies the rumors of litter boxes in restrooms for the students. A school district in Iowa has been hit with rumors saying that students who identify as cats are allowed to use litter boxes in the school. Okay, so where did this start? Somebody's laughing somewhere at this thing. Yeah, the rumor is that our schools have litter boxes in the restrooms to accommodate individuals self-identifying as animals, but it's simply and emphatically not true. Don't they have flushable litter anyway for furries or non-furries? I mean, they wouldn't need the box. Yep, Senator Balsaman said he was assured that none of this actually happened. It shows how easy it is for lawmakers to believe this stuff. This is John Kipper. I honestly don't find it all that unbelievable in retrospect. All right, let's go ahead and continue here. Donald Trump's in trouble. Boring blue pill stuff, but I'll keep an eye on it. Check out this tweet. I hope it's fake. Card declined. This is like a dollar store register. Card declined. Please delete all tweets that violate your bank's hate speech policies to process payment. Like, we're almost there. And I actually kind of feel like we're here, where if you say the wrong thing, your card will be declined. It doesn't happen in that order, but I've had 3 channels pulled in the last week because of words. I mean, if you just read tweets, let's say you didn't have any original content, you just read tweets, and you read it dispassionately as though it were an audiobook. You're doing some anthropology. You're just keeping a record. Hate speech. It's just key words. They have created essentially, I would say, blasphemies. They actually have, like, they might as well just have blasphemy law to prevent slappings and stuff. Infinite Muse says, our future. They already, it's almost here already. This is almost not a joke. So we are at a point now where the memes that are parodies on extremism are actually impossible to differentiate from the real thing. Like we live in a Poe reality. Let's go ahead and just put it out like that, because the whole idea of the Poe, it's Poe's law, and it's just the idea that any parody of extremism that's done well enough will be indistinguishable from the real thing. Poe's law is an adage of internet culture stating that without a clear indicator of the author's intent, every parody of extreme views can be mistaken by some readers for a sincere expression of the views being parodied. So, yes, we live in our whole world is just a parody of this extremism, and yeah, you can take it seriously if you want to. So here's the meme going around. It's probably misinformation and hate speech, but whatever. Chris Rock makes a joke about Jada's hair condition at the authors. Media goes nuts, pushing the awareness of this into mass consciousness, and then Fiverr brings a drug to market. Pfizer happens to sponsor the Oscars. What a coincidence. Okay, let us continue. Just a side note here. Biden to lift Title 42 border policy, allowing immediate deportation. Anytime I see the number 42 in a big story like this, I take note. Generally, it refers to blackouts, things falling. But yeah, nothing good generally. We'll see. Okay, now this was posted on Twitter by Coyote, and I'll share his Twitter link if you want to follow him. I recommend following people on Twitter. We have a pretty good network of Twitterers. Venus Williams' arm. Now this is what I mentioned earlier. So while Smith was giving his acceptance speech, she flashes her breast, but she forms a triangle with her arm. So Venus Williams' arm depicts the constellation Triangulum. So Triangulum. And then it even has a corresponding star where her nipple would be, and it's the star Algol, which is the eye in the head of Medusa. So interesting there. I mean, the point is she flashed that, and it does connect to the bigger story. Now here's a quick note on I'm seeing more like this going around on this Watergate thing. This is from a Twitter account, Outspoken. Roger Stone is the common denominator with Trump and Nixon missing tapes and calls. So do you remember I brought this up? That Roger Stone, who was hanging around Trump in 2015, 2016, before they kind of pushed him away, he's the guy who's got the Richard Nixon tramp stamp. And when he was young, he spent time on the Nixon campaign. Well, he's the dirty tricks guy. That's kind of how he's known, I think. And it seems to me that this is a bit of repetition. So when I saw Roger Stone and his association with Trump, I thought there's got to be some kind of Nixon thing going on here. And sure enough, Watergate is consistently popping up in my feeds. References to Watergate, comparisons. And these aren't flippant comparisons. These are analogous situations. Although this one's arguably worse. OG Fepe says, just got here. Hope I didn't miss anything. Flaptastic. Yeah, get on the text message alerts. And also, this is a brand new YouTube channel. Let's see here. Commenter Int Primus says, George Carlin and Bill Hicks were the best comedians of the turn of the century, educating people under satire. Yes, I agree. You know, Alex Stein credited Alex Jones with being a great comedian, and I thought that was funny. Because he's not a comedian. He's a super serious, run for the hills, get off the grid, the NWO's coming to kill you conspiracy theorist guy. He's not a comedian. Is there something that we don't know? Oh, check this out. You've got Will Smith doing the sign of the master of the second veil. This is posted by Conspiracy. Jordan says, oh, I don't know about that. I almost can't read that one. Now, here's the correspondences, just for anybody who missed the last couple of live streams. In the movie, King Richard, played by Will Smith, is defending Venus Williams in the green court. And then she becomes a first black female, basically breaking the. This is analogous to in many ways, not the same thing, but it's sort of a Jackie Robinson type story. Number 42, and Jackie Robinson Day or something is on the 4th, the 75th anniversary. But the context of it is, if it weren't for King Richard, if it weren't for her dad advocating, they would not have made it. They needed that because the system was inherently biased. So there's this subtext here of systemic racism built into the film. And it all ties in, I think, correspondingly to, one, he defended Jade. Again, same character, and he even references it. Art imitates life. She's dressed in green. Jade is embodying this Venus archetype. But then you also had Venus in the audience, which adds to this. So you have these corresponding stories, but all of it ties in, and this is the next area I wanted to kind of get into with this metascript thing, is I believe that this journey, or this journey of Venus through the tennis court, and of course green, it corresponds to the Supreme Court nominee Jackson, who is being brought up in the context even of the Crown Act, which has to do with discrimination against natural hair. It's about black hair culture. And Chris Rock's joke about Jada's hair ties right into this, especially because Chris Rock actually knows what he's talking about, and he wouldn't have made that joke. He shouldn't have, because he's done a documentary on this very topic. So the Crown Act has everything to do with the sensitivity around insulting her hair and him defending it. And the second part that parallels is Serena Williams and the tennis court parallels the Supreme Court nominee being the first black woman. And again, Supreme Court, tennis court. There's a parallel here. And then you also have the parallel with the royalty thing. The use of the word court, King Richard, King Macbeth. These are all parts to a play. And we're looking at all these different pieces, and it's telling a pretty consistent story, and it definitely parallels. And it has to do with the protective role that Will Smith plays. And the word protection is what he uses in his speech. And he even talked about not only protecting not only being King Richard protecting his girls, but he also was protective over the actresses. So he reiterates that. And again, Venus, and this is one of the things we had picked up in our research here, is associated with, well, one, protection, and two, blacksmiths. So you see the subtext here. If you just look at the coded language, you've got blacksmith, protection, Venus, all very well integrated. And also, before Smith and Jada went out there to the front row where they could be joked up, where he could be the target of the joke, because it wouldn't have worked if he wasn't sitting in front. But before that, they were backstage, and they had been quoted as saying something to the effect of bringing the chaos. And they're in a green room with the green spotlight. Again, all very, very much significant here. And then, of course, on 4/4, the day that Jackson's going to get voted into the Supreme Court, on that day, 4/4, it's Jackie Robinson Day. ESPN, beginning April 4th, they're going to commemorate his legacy. And we're talking about the 75th. Now I'm going through some comments. Jordan says, a family of mine has alopecia. He has no eyebrows or hair. Jada has a shaved head, doesn't look the same. Right, I'm open to the possibility it could all be fake. Now again, the head. We're talking about the head, and this ties in to the Crown Act, which is all about this issue of black hair culture. And then, of course, this new Supreme Court justice is an advocate of the critical race theory, which is something opposed by the other side. It's just one of these political footballs. Not a coincidence that Clarence Thomas is being put to the ringer for his connections to QAnon. Very, very close to the tip of the QAnon spear, that guy, through his wife. But these aren't coincidences. This is part of the story. So again, on 4/4, you'll see the Supreme Court thing happen, and it's going to be the anniversary date of Jackie Robinson breaking the MLB color barrier. Yes, David Pryor, Chris Rock did do a documentary on the subject, which is why it would make even less sense that he would be making a flippant joke like this. Pop Sugar, Rock himself, made a documentary about black hair culture. Countless articles have been written on it in the U.S. and the importance in it in the community, specifically for black women. It's an undeniable, well-documented fact. So it's a provocation. And I brought this up this morning, but again, Easter, Ishtar, Venus. And then you have Venus exposing the breast. And if you look into the ritual of it, Venus personified, the goddess representative. And this harkens back to Janet Jackson on the green football field Super Bowl Sunday next to the Justin Timberlake wearing the green shirt. And she has an exposed breast with a sun on it. And this all represents, of course, the sun god and his weaning. But this is all a ritual to the goddess. Spring ritual. All right, some more notes here. Just more reasons to not think that there's anything here other than a ritual disguised as something else. And it's clearly disguised as mere drama. And look, Will Smith is a well-rehearsed crisis slapper. Here he is making it look like he's slapping somebody, and he's teaching, I guess this is a young fan, he's teaching his young fan how to fake slap somebody.
There you go.
There you go. So there you have Will Smith simulating child abuse, and then listen to everybody clap. So it shows you he knows how to do it. He slapped his own hand. And I think that's probably exactly what he did. And this is from TMZ. Will Smith is an adept face slapper, even teaching youngsters the ropes on how to wind up and deliver. TMZ obtained this footage back in November showing Will and his King Richard co-star. Wow. Okay, so this is a co-star from King Richard. And he's teaching him how to slap. This is kind of interesting. How to fake fight in flicks. So he literally taught a class on this. So here's another reason. We got a list of reasons to not think this is an actual real event. So you see all these people overreacting to it. Yeah, those are the true believers. Those are the triple vaxxed, double masked, sleeping with their space junk helmets on. So yes, keep an eye on 4/4, ESPN debut special project commemorating the 75th anniversary of Jackie Robinson breaking the MLB color barrier. Now, there's a few interesting things about this, and it's all about this mind mapping of the patterns here. But there are some fascinating things that are emerging, which I'm going to have to do a specific mind map on, and it has to do with the number 75 and 57, and it ties in to some repeated phrases, specifically black rock, and also just rock by itself. And BLM and MLB tie in quite a lot with this bigger narrative. So if you didn't catch it, in 2020, during the Mamba Week celebration of the recently supposedly deceased Kobe Bryant's birthday, his posthumous 42nd birthday, NBA celebrating Kobe Bryant's 42nd. At that same time, MLB they were all wearing 42 on their jerseys for Jackie Robinson. So it was a completely different person they're wearing it for. But it was 42 for MLB and NBA at the same time. And this was Kenosha week, during those Kenosha riots. This was also the time that Chadwick Boseman, who played Black Panther and was in The Five Bloods, a movie with a ton of predictive programming in it for 2020, directed by Spike Lee, no less, where he dies at the age of 42. Now, he played 42. He played Jackie Robinson. We're talking about Chadwick Boseman. He had Operation 42, where he put $4.2 million into COVID relief and some other stuff. My point being, that number 42, Jackie Robinson, and a number of these high-profile figures like Kobe Bryant, whose last interview on Earth, by the way, was with the twin of George Floyd, Stephen Jackson, 42. So what I'm saying here is all of this ties into this bigger, I would call it this Psywar, but it's this clash, this race Psywar in particular, where they have the whole Derek chauvinism kneeling on George Floyd, representing, of course, oppression. I can't breathe, which also they have taken the I can't breathe to relate to the atmosphere. So the same system that oppresses the poor and kneels on their necks is the polluting system that's destroying our environment so we can't breathe. So I can't breathe is code. It's also an anagram for a better China, which makes sense when you look at China's role in fomenting the civil unrest and probably bankrolling a lot of these major psyops, because BLM, whether or not you agree they have a point or how much they have a point, the fact is BLM is pretty much the Black Panthers, and that's why I brought up Chadwick Boseman, who played Black Panther, the Marvel character, but it tied in to the Black Panther political group, because the Black Panthers, the movement itself, is really just the vanguard of the Marxist revolution. It's the useful idiots for this world communist revolution domestically. So this should be an interesting week. I'm looking forward to what happens on 4/4. Let me go through some comments. Yeah, Will Smith is a professional slapper. And I'm assuming that Chris Rock got paid to get slapped. I'm just not sure how much, can you crowdfund it? But look what happened with his tour. Like I said, no, that's the other one. His tour is called Ego Death. What more appropriate name could you have for a person who could just so stoically take a slap in the face in front of the world? He flinched a little bit, kind of grinned, but, he took it very well. But again, by coincidence, Rock was booked to play several shows in Boston beginning on Wednesday for the Ego Death World Tour. And those tickets went from $49 to $8,000 with one slap. All right, let us continue. I'm going to go through the headlines. O.J. Simpson says he understands Smith. Now, here's what he said. Let me get back to that, because O.J., the article makes it sound like, just by the headline, that he understands violent retribution. But that's not what he's talking about, because this is from the perspective of an innocent man. The gloves didn't fit. He says, quote, "Look, I understand the feeling. In my life, I've been through a lot of crap, and every comedian in the country has an OJ routine, and don't think I wouldn't want to slap a couple of them." He actually said bitch slap. But you got to accept that it's human. Simpson, 74, who ended up being convicted for armed robbery in Vegas in 2008 before being paroled in 2017, said he felt sympathy towards Smith. He said it was wrong to hurt the guy over a semi-unfunny joke. Yeah, I'm mostly in agreement with him. I think it's funny that he's opining on this. We've been talking about OJ lately because I think he was freed in December, but I've been waiting for Kanye to come out and do an OJ. Maybe go Manson on the situation and then follow that up with an OJ-like ride into the sunset.
But the question I've been getting is, Will,
like on a white horse. Not in a Bronco, but literally Kanye on a white horse. Okay, here we go. O.J. Simpson.
Smith and Chris Rock. Hey, look, it was unfortunate. I think Will was wrong. Look, I understood the feeling. Now, in my life, I've been through a lot of crap when I was raising two young kids, and every comedian in the country had an OJ routine, and don't think I wouldn't want to be slapped a couple of those.
Okay, B-slap. Very classy. He said B-slap. I'm going to use that. See, that's a man with self-control. I don't think he stabbed Nicole Simpson. I think that Nicole Simpson got repurposed as Megyn Kelly, made the face of Fox News. By the way, side note, doesn't relate to anything, but F is 6, O is 15, 5 and 1 is 6, and X is 24, 4 and 2, 6. So Fox is 666. If you didn't already know. I mean, I think all these big media corporations are pretty much overt in who they serve. The Daily Beast, And even NBC, the peacock. Nothing innocent about that. The peacock is how they worship Lucifer. I guess it represents pride. The thing's kind of cocky, and it has its, God's most beautiful angel, that kind of thing. But yeah, they worship the peacock. NBC, peacock. CBS, all-seeing eye. It's all of them. Hey, speaking of Kanye, I have something here. Kanye called in, was it 2 nights ago? I missed the call, but he did a little 30-second freestyle. I believe I have it in audio here. I think it was Kanye. I gotta take you at your word. If somebody says that they're somebody, how am I to know? And even if, let's say somebody calls in and it is that person, chances are nobody's gonna believe it. Let me go ahead and play this.
Gotta testify. Walk up in the spot looking extra fly. Till the day I die. I'ma touch the sky. Okay, now I'm gonna sing some more Kanye. Okay, you ready? Ready? On site, on site, on site. Let me show you right now before you give it up. How much do I not give a fuck? Let me show you right now before you give it up. Thank you for listening to my Kanye freestyle session.
Awesome, thank you. Call back anytime. Let me see if I have another voicemail. Okay, I have some more voicemails. Let me go ahead and play some. By the way, the number is 833-311-1984.
Tim, I figured it out. I was listening to the replay today, and it clicked in my head. This whole World War III is happening because nobody believes in COVID anymore. See, we thought that chapter was over and that we were going into World War III. What they're trying to do is...
Okay, really quick here, before I get back into that message, somebody said, she doesn't look like the Fox lady. And what happened to Goldman? Yeah, let me bring that up. Ron Goldman, just take a look at his face, just to have it fresh in your mind. And it's your opinion it doesn't look like Megan Fox. I would say 99.9% of the people who look at that would disagree with you. That's not an argument in favor of it, but if you're going to allege certainty, you're going to have to provide some counter evidence because it's practically overwhelming. So let me go ahead and bring up a picture of Ron Goldman. Again, what you're looking at here is not Governor Newsom in better days. Let me bring up a picture of Governor Newsom for comparison. Because they kind of, I think that you could even you can connect some dots here. Here you have Governor Newsom, major COVIDiot, mask hole, vax hole, the whole thing, fascist, hypocrite. And these hypocrites in high places were just the worst. I mean, we really did get a good idea of where people really stand once you just gave them a little bit. Give them a little bit of power to regulate your life, and they will micromanage every single detail. I think the worst part was when Maggie the Block was saying that you couldn't have... let me get her exact words, actually. I don't want to misquote this. And I'm searching Maggie the Block. If you don't know who Maggie the Block is, she's one of these ministers of unhealth. And the name is Maggie the Block. It sounds like some kind of like a wrestler's name. Like, you've got names like, what's that one guy's name? Hurricane, Tornado. Their names are like the Twin Towers, World Wrestling Federation. And you would think Maggie the Block. That's got to be a wrestler name. But no, it's a health minister. And she doesn't look like somebody that you would take health advice from. Here's an actual picture. And that's an actual name. That's why I can't get over it. It's the most world stage name I've ever seen before. And it's quite obviously a mask. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked. We were talking about Ron Goldman and how he grew up and became Governor Newsom. Can anybody here spot a difference? I mean, anything that's different here can be explained away as simply as cosmetic surgery. I mean, it's really that simple, aging. But other than that, I can't spot a difference. I'd like to see Megyn Kelly and Governor Newsom in the same room. Would they have some kind of weird chemistry? All right, I'm going through some comments. OJ Fepe says, aren't Venus and Serena eunuchs? Don't know how you'd know. How? I mean, some of these assertions really wouldn't change the outcome of the story. Finbar says Timothy McVeigh is an FBI agent for sure. Yes, Special Agent Weisseball. No, Timothy McVeigh did not die at the age of 33 on 6/11/01. Inspired by the Turner Diaries, written by a guy born on 9/11, 1933. No, he didn't die. Nor did he actually stay at some compound, 33 acres, P.O. Box 33. Nor was his, I mean, the whole thing is so laden with symbolism. Let me show you this one. This is a new one. Another one of these 33s. Molly Rollins sent this to me on Twitter. So apparently, the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop can be located at 33 Thomas Street, New York City. Again, 33's just got to be a hoax code or something. All right, I'm going through your comments. Yeah, no, look, I'm certain here that the Megyn Kelly thing pans out. I've looked into it. So much weirdness out there. I almost don't want to touch. I'm looking at some of these things. I'm like, I don't even want to go there. They got Rock's bloody head and Kevin Hart's bloody head, and they're both laughing at each other. And Kevin Hart's making these bizarre jokes about how The Rock needs a prosthetic forehead. I mean, if they weren't laughing, I wouldn't know that they were telling jokes. I would just think that they were just freaking crazy. But I don't really see a connection between their words and their laughter. I don't know what they're on. Hollyweird. They're all on the flocka. So this is Hollyweird Magick, disguised as mere drama. And that's the key here. It's all psychodrama. You know, it's all there to get some kind of reaction out of you. But when we scratch beneath the surface, we find layers and layers of meaning, connecting it to the mystery schools, the secret societies. And these are also covert influence operations. Simon Says posted this in Discord today. Venus Kelva, Venus the Bald One, a legendary form of Venus, attested only by post-classical Roman writings, which offer several traditions to explain the appearance. In one, it commemorates the virtuous offer by Roman matrons of their own hair to make bowstrings during a siege of Rome. In another, Roman women lost their hair during an epidemic. I wonder if it was a pandemic. In hopes of its restoration, the unafflicted women sacrificed their own hair to Venus. So there is a connection here with the Venus archetype and the baldness. And I'd also say that the bald head being criticized does tie in and will, I think, undoubtedly raise awareness about the Crown Act, which I mentioned earlier. Again, the use of the word crown, corona, very significant, but specifically in this context, the Crown Act will have something to do with, one, the joke that was made, but it also relates to the new Supreme Court justice. You know, because I think a lot of what's going on here, you know, in this Poe world, is they are making the world safer. And when I say safe, I should say secure, like maximum security. They're turning it into a prison world, and they're basically outlawing thought crimes. They're trying to. And one of the things I think the slap was about is they're redefining things for the new age, which you can think of it as the space age, but it's the safe space age. As in, they're going to regulate every meme, every thought, mentally mask you. And this does tie in to Darth Schwab's proclamation of a few days ago, where he said something to the effect of, the internet's going to need to be dealt with because there's too much, quote, misinformation. But, you know, don't worry about any of this stuff. Like long term, all their threats about censoring things, because they will. But the truth is, we are not going to be affected by it. I have plans. You know, in the next few months, we're going to have a consolidated infinite plane radio archives. And I'm working on a project. I need to find some developers, but we have some ideas on how to consolidate all of our chats into one place. So it's just going to get better. And if you got my newsletter today, I'm going back to work part-time because I've been doing the split shift, artwork and then Infinite Plane Radio, managing the network. But the artwork thing, I don't think is the most constructive use of my time. So I'm going back to my previous job, just a part-time gig, just transporting. It's kind of like Uber for the deceased. Every unexpected death, homicide, suicide, car crash, hanging, whatever, needs to be transported to the morgue, but there's somebody who has to do that work, and that would be me. I've done it before. It's just a simple on-call position, a few hours a day, a lot of driving, but I wouldn't call it fun. But I actually feel like out of all the work that I've done, like I could go to hell for what I did at DirecTV, just being a part of that company, slinging that propaganda, their entire rip-off system. The place has nothing but bad karma. But I think that this work is something of a service to humanity, if nothing else. So, because people will say, they'll make comments, they'll think that, it's somehow something that you'd have to be warped in some way to want to do it. But the fact is, someone has to, and I think it's a service. I really do. So I'm going back to it because I think it's something and I had the person who taught me when I first got into that line of work was 77 at the time, and he was getting too old to do it himself, so I would just go meet him at the homes and I helped him do all the removals. And then I got into the field of embalming for a bit, and then I got into just picking up the recently deceased that go to the morgue, the ones that have to be autopsied. And that's the work I'm getting back into. So just a heads up, I'm doing this because I want this channel to continue to flourish, but we have so much stacked against us in terms of the snowflake culture and now the slap you in the face culture that I want to preserve this, and I also want to metastasize. The reason why we have the Godzilla sound effect whenever somebody super chats is that we do have a major expansions and growth planned for 2022, and I'll do it if I have to wade through a field of corpses to do it. Because they're not going to monetize this. I mean, they shot down 3 channels in a week. So anyway, it's no big deal. To me, it's like I've always enjoyed work. Whether I'm working at telemarketing firms or even self-checkout, Walmart, whatever, I've never hated my jobs. It's just I don't want to do a job that takes my mental focus away from mass media breakdown. And when I'm doing this type of job, I'm doing a lot of listening on headphones and stuff. I don't work with people directly because this is before all of the drama with the funerals. This is just from the location to the morgue. Angst G says, at least you won't get complaints from your passengers. Well, there's one gig I had where the gurney wasn't perfectly locked in place, and it kept bumping the back of my seat whenever I'd hit a red light. I wouldn't take that as a complaint, but... All right, let's go ahead and... Oh, you know what? Let me bring up one more thing. One of the dumbest cliches I've ever heard, and I just got to put an end to this. People would ask, do bodies sit up? Which never happens. Most people can't do sit-ups anyway. But no, I've heard that before. I'm like, why would people even think that? Jackie Jack says, I'm still tripping over Nicole Simpson. How many others are recycled? Well, okay, I think Nicole Simpson took part in an event that was, of course, meant to be very polarizing, and it's par for the course when it comes to the Psy war that is being waged, and it's all about the divide and conquer. And so I say these things sounding somewhat flippantly, but no, I don't think we're looking at news reporters. I think we're looking at psychological operations specialists who are there to mind F you and everybody that you know. Zuckerbug posted this in Discord. Nice avatar, by the way. I wish I could blow it up for everyone to see. It says IPS, cracking the code. And we have been decoding, and that is the right word for it. We have been cracking the code. And it started in July of 2020. I caught a commercial for the newest team in the NHL, the National Hockey League. It was the 32nd team, the Seattle Kraken. And I'm like, wait, this trailer for the Seattle Kraken looks like an EMP attack on Seattle. And it's 1 minute and 13 seconds long. And anyone who's looked into predictive programming knows that 113, kind of like 9/11, it's one of these things that's constantly showing up. But 11.3 is always associated with some kind of nuke situation in Seattle. So I saw this Kraken 113, and I thought something's going down in Seattle on 113, which happened to be election day. As we got closer to election day, the memes started promulgating from everywhere. They're going to release the Kraken. The Kraken was Lindsay Powell, or no, Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell had some kind of scheme to overturn the election and win it back for Trump. So that was the Kraken. Then the Kraken was Hunter Biden's laptop. They kept talking about, oh, Hunter Biden's got a crack pipe. It's going to ruin Joe Biden's presidency. So I kept hearing, wait, Kraken and crack coming together, these terms. And then, of course, Powell is later replaced by Mike Lindell, the pillow guy, whose claim to fame is, hey, look at me, I'm a former crackhead. Now I sell pillows. And I still act like a crackhead. So Mike Lindell that then brings out this whole crack thing. And I start noticing that the word crack and this constant refrain to a schism in our society is what I'm picking up on here. And as we get closer to Pluto return on 2/2/2022, it became clearer to me that what we're looking at here is the deliberate fracturing of our society along ideological lines, something that we've pointed out on this channel for a bit. There's a reason why the anti-vax group is also the pro-borders and pro-gun, while the mandatory vax group hates guns and wants open borders. Because borders, whether it's your skin, your front door, or your national boundaries, these are all things that your relationship to these says a lot about your relationship to government. And the left likes a big, strong government protecting them, and the right says, no, we don't need a government-injected immune system. We just need to be able to defend our own borders, our own immune system, our own Second Amendment. So this is the crack. This is the split. Then you had the ISS literally cracking, and if you read the headlines, there are cracks in the ISS. It's like, okay, what's going on there? Well, as you've seen, you have a big schism up above as the space communists have separated from the space capitalists. You have Russia and China preparing their moon base, which will probably be built out of Astrocrete. Astrocrete, of course, is made of donated blood, hopefully donated, blood and regolith, the moon dust. So the space commies are separating. The Chinese have their own space station now. And as it goes, I mean, even in the last couple of months, Russia has multiple times made basically insinuations that they're going to leave. But anyway, it's the crack, it's the schism, and it's all been highlighted. And finally, on 2/2/2022, that whole month, just a quick refresh here. On the second day of the month, in the Twin Cities, and when you see the number 2, think twin. Second day of the month in the Twin Cities, Amir Locke was shot by the police at 6:48 a.m. Now, he was shot because they had a no-knock warrant. So the code is clear here. The Locke, Amir Locke, no-knock warrant. They go in, they shoot him. Now, the name Amir sounds like a mirror. And they shot him at 6:48. They entered the door. The key went in the lock at 6:48. 9 seconds later, they pulled the trigger on him. Well, 6:48 is a mirror of 8:46. 8:46 is the time that George Floyd was kneeled on. 8:46 is the time in the morning that 9/11 started. So 8:46, 6:48 being a mirror, and Amir Locke was killed in the Twin Cities. So this kind of kicked it off. On the 22nd, that happened to be the day of Pluto return, and this is where the Kraken comes into it. So just bear with me for a second here. On the 22nd, the day that Pluto returned to the point where it was on July 4th, 1776. On that day, there was a number of things, again, reiterating this twin thing. You had twin Black Hawk helicopters, both go down in Fork Canyon. Again, a fork, a split, a crack, a fork, this reoccurring theme. So we're looking at these, and I'm like, okay, what is going on here? Well, it turns out, and this is, I think, the major reveal, it turns out that the Kraken was created by Hades and released by Hades. Hades is Pluto. Same guy, same character. Also, Hades Pluto carries a bident, which is a two-pronged spear. Another splitting, another reference to this reoccurring symbol. But again, Hades releases the Kraken. So I saw 222 as probably the day where all this talk about the Kraken is going to finally manifest into something tangible. Like we'll see the direction things are going to go. We'll know what the Kraken is that is being released. Well, on the day after the killing of Amir Locke, his father said he called for 22 days of peace. And I remember noting that, thinking, let's keep an eye on the 24th. And of course, the 24th, we have the kickoff with the Ukraine thing, which, again, there was a ton of predictive programming for that. A lot of it with the colors, the blue and the yellow, the headache-inducing hues of blue and yellow. So anyway, yes, the Kraken thing all ties in to Pluto. All right, let me go through your comments, see if I've missed anything. Van Gogh says, oh, happy birthday, by the way. Van Gogh says, I live right on the Puget Sound in the Seattle area. I'm waiting for the Kraken to pop out of the water. Yeah, 1,800 Amazon employees were relocated from downtown Seattle because of a crime wave, they said. Again, think Kraken. Okay, I got two things on this one. Okay, so if you search crime wave, Seattle, Amazon, and this is big. This is Metascript. This is predictive programming. Amazon moves Seattle employees after crime surge. Then you have crime wave, crime surge. So I'm thinking, wait a minute. Amazon flees Seattle as deadly crime wave overtakes city. 1,800 employees. So I'm thinking here, they're relocating people because they're making way for a major psyop. Again, Seattle. So let's one step further. This is where I think it ties into the Kraken thing. So if you search Kraken Jeff Bezos, it just so happens that Jeff Bezos was killed by a Kraken. He was killed by a Kraken in the Inside Job on Netflix, episode 6, I believe, where flat earthers hijack his mega yacht, his Titanic. And again, Titanic, it's all symbolic.
The Coast Guard said they can tow your yacht into shore. I got a better plan. Look.
Here we go. He was Jeff Bezos getting killed by a Kraken.
Is that a Kraken? Hell yes. I'm about to collect on my yacht insurance policy.
Hey, has anyone seen Jeff Bezos?
Is the fight over, guys? This is why I don't allow bathroom breaks!
So there you have the Kraken killing Bezos. Fascinating. Now, I just searched Kraken and Bezos. I didn't think I'd find anything else. Jeff Bezos buys naming rights to Seattle's NHL arena. So this was recent. And here's an actual meme of Jeff Bezos as a Kraken coming out of the water and wrecking Seattle. Fascinating. Disturbing artwork, by the way. Very fascinating character. Typecast Dr. Evil, complete with Dong Rocket, and instead of the scar, he did have a surgically altered eye. I called it the crazy eye Jeff Bezos. They've de-emphasized it, or they've replaced him. I don't know. All right, I'm going through some comments. Enslaved by Truth says, the World in Conflict Microsoft PC game, Seattle invasion by Ruskies and shipping containers with Nuki boys. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. That's what it's suggesting here. So the Kraken could just reference something from the water. And I've got hours and hours of Metascript breakdown on the Seattle thing, and I don't want to go too deep down any of these tangents just yet, but we have pre-reverse engineered some of the major psyops before they happen. What do we call that? Precognitively auto. I mean, it's here's the thing. If you can assume it's a psyop or that they're going to do something based on the predictive programming, you have a predictive model there. It's like you look at stuff hindsight 2020, but what happens when you start looking forward? Like, what is this Kraken thing about? And again, it's going somewhere, and it's consistent. And for them to have Bezos killed by a Kraken, Van Gogh says, I looked into so much of this. Seattle, Supersonics, Sonic Boom, Seattle Seahawks. Secondary was Legion of Boom. Oh yeah, here's another one. So we were looking at Seattle for Ground Zero back on 311 because I had watched a movie called, or a series on Netflix. Again, another Netflix, called Colony. So if you go to Colony and you watch Season 3, Episode 11, it's all about this thing called the Phoenix. This Phoenix operation, like a group of rebels against this system where the world has been taken over by aliens, but you never see the aliens. Everything just turns all fascist. So, episode 11 of season 3, there's your 311. One of the characters says, Seattle is ground zero for the reboot of civilization. And this was, I was watching this around the time I think Chazistan was going on. And I thought, I hope that's not their plan. And I think it is. The Chazistanian world order. But yes, the reboot of civilization starting in Seattle. And this again was from a show called Colony. Well, what happened? Patient zero for the pandemic was in Seattle. He came down with the sickness on 119. Very significant. And he was patient zero. And the pandemic was declared in Seattle, ground zero, 311. And then we had the reset of civilization. Not reboot, but same thing, reset. And speaking of, I have something else. I watched that movie Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds. And in Free Guy, they have to reset the metaverse where all these characters live. And the guy who pushes the reset button is wearing a $100 bill on his shirt. So anybody who's looked into the Seattle predictive programming has probably come across this. The $20 bill folded up gives you 9/11 on the back with the burning Twin Towers. The $100 bill gives you the Space Needle with an EMP nuke blast on top of it. But no, you caught those numbers though, right? 119 and 311 predicting the ground zero for COVID. Well, check this out. There is a TV show called The Office, which I never watch. And on 3/11, 2010, as in 10 years before the pandemic, to the day, they had an episode called St. Patrick's Day. Original air date, 3/11/2010. Now check this part out. It was the 119th episode. So 119 and 311, directly correlating to patient 0, 119, ground 0, 311. But it gets even deeper because this whole episode is about somebody at the office catching the flu and somebody wears a mask because of it, or somebody gets a cough and someone wears a mask. And everyone thinks it's weird that this guy's wearing a mask. Let me read this preview here because they also have a song by Harry Chapin, Cats in the Cradle, with references to children staying home because of the flu. So in this episode, the 119th episode of The Office aired on 3/11, Joe Bennett and Michael clash. Joe makes the whole office stay late at work. Andy and Aaron's first date's interrupted when Aaron goes home sick. So Andy pretends to be sick to go to her house. So you have people faking sickness. You have a weirdo with the mask. And you have this song about the flu. And it's 10 years before the pandemic is declared to the day, and it's episode 119, which is the date that patient 0 caught the bug. And this is one example of hundreds of them. Let me bring something else up here because Salty Siren says Lovecraft articulates our shadowy astrology perhaps. And Van Gogh mentions Lovecraft being onto something. Well, he is, I think. H.P. Lovecraft has this fictional universe where the elder gods, and again Elohim, those who came from the sky, all this repeated symbolism, but the elder gods, they come down from the sky and they land in the ocean and have a city beneath the ocean. And their leader is a big kraken called Cthulhu. This big kraken character came from outer space and he landed at Point Nemo, which has science fiction tie-ins. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but it also has science fiction tie-ins because that's where NASA drops their dead satellites. So the place where they have dead satellites falling from the sky, the spacecraft cemetery, is where the dead gods, the old ones or whatever, live. And they're said dead, like they call them dead but dreaming. So they're like comatose. But they're basically comatose until something wakes them up. And the whole story is about how at a certain time, which is probably 2022, I don't know. But again, there's a big kraken right there where all the satellites fall. Sat L lights. Interesting patterning here. Another connection between real life and fiction, which is what they always do. And that's where the Space Needle will be landing if they take it down intentionally. Not the Space Needle, I'm sorry, the space station. Now the Space Needle hit the moon on New Year's. They did that kind of a hybrid fireworks drone show, a light show. And then you had moonfall. And then on 3/4, the back of the moon was hit by an errant piece of space junk, if you recall that. Now the Space Needle is a modern day obelisk, and it was consciously designed to resemble a mothership, and that's the tractor beam. Now here's some symbolism for you. And this is why I'm doing Metascript decodes, these 10-minute videos. So the Space Needle is in Washington, which is state number 42. It is 42 meters wide, and it takes 42 seconds to go from the bottom to the top. Again, the 42 has to do with Saturn, and it has everything to do with SpaceX. SpaceX encodes that number into everything. But it's a very significant thing, and that's why I'm bringing it up here. Just as the Twin Towers were very significant, they were culturally relevant, they were always in your face in these various movies, they were put there deliberately because they were built to be taken down. The construction started in 1968, the same year that 911 became the emergency number in the United States, and 33 years later they pulled them down. 13 years later, they go back up. Well, one goes back up, the One World Trade Tower. They were going to call it the World Trade Center Phoenix, but they didn't because it would have been too obvious. 13 is a major Phoenix number, death and rebirth. And care to guess the date that they opened the One World Trade Tower? November the 3rd, 113. These numbers are so consistent across all these various rituals. But my point being, the Space Needle is as significant in this metascript as the Twin Towers were. And it is an obelisk. And what that means essentially is it's the path to the heavens. It represents the god of death and resurrection. It's Osiris. It's just like the Washington Monument. It's just like any of these rockets. Same symbol, but this one's modernized. There's quite a lot we could say about this particular structure, and I'll spend more time on it in the coming days. But again, the Seattle Kraken, let me bring this one more thing up. You'll often see imagery of a Kraken taking down the Space Needle. Here's their actual logo. It's a Kraken over an anchor, but the anchor is actually the Space Needle, as you can see there. And let me go ahead and play the trailer, or parts of it, because the trailer is the first thing that tipped me off. I was calling out this Kraken meme before it became a popular meme because of the election and this release the Kraken talk. In fact, you'll find even recently, Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas, had some kind of statement the other day about, here we go, 6 days ago from theweek.com, release the Kraken, Ginny Thomas's post-election tweets. Clarence Thomas's wife to Meadows, release the Kraken. Ginny Thomas wanted to release the Kraken. So here you have it, meet the Kraken. And again, this one caught my attention because it's 1 minute and 13 seconds long. And it's a trailer in Seattle, and it looks like an EMP blast. Possibly nukes, some kind of threat. Very ominous trailer. And again, it's in Seattle, and then you have this tentacle with this demonic eye, and of course, dramatic music. Seattle Kraken. Enslaved by Truth says the Space Needle funded by the Pentagram Corp. Yes. Yeah, I saw that too. There's, in fact, recently it had this renovation and they had a time capsule inside of it. There's so much to unpack with the Space Needle. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to get too lost down various tangents now because I'm creating a series of 10-minute videos designed for Twitter and TikTok, my Metascript decodes. And I'll be doing short, concise, deep dives into each one of these significant events, monuments, persons, psyops, and we'll build up a collection in that way. And I figured what I'll do is I will release them as premieres, but I'll release them early to patrons, probably a day or so. I have 100 of them so far, loosely outlined, but enough to where I could actually record them. All right, I'm going through some comments. Grangerman says the Seattle Kraken logo is a trident, just like the Ukraine coat of arms. SpongeBob77 says, remember Biden's enemy Corn Pop, the Switchblade street thug, and now Biden sends Switchblade drones to Ukraine. Interesting. Yeah, Corn Pop. When I heard that speech, man, that's when I had to really question, is this guy high? Is he high, like on something? That's psychosis. And I couldn't believe it. Let me go ahead and play it. I'm just going to play a clip here about the harrowing incident with the gang leader.
I learned a lot.
Corn Pop.
And I learned that it makes a difference. This was the diving board area, and I was one of the guards, and there weren't allowed to, there was a 3-meter board. And if you fell off sideways, you landed on the darn cement over there. And Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did, and back in those days, to show how things have changed, one of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap.
So he talks about how Corn Pop was sharpening his razor on the sidewalk, and he came out with the chain. This is after
cut off a 6-foot length of chain.
This is probably long after he talked about how when he gets out of the swimming pool, his leg hairs stand up like cockroach legs, and the children are greatly amused by this. I mean, his story is so bizarre. And why isn't his shirt buttoned up?
Off a 6-foot length of chain, he folded up, he said, you walk out with that chain. And you walk to the car and say, you may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head. I said, you kidding me? He said, no, if you don't come back. And he was right. So I walked out with the chain. And I walked up to my car. And they had, in those days, you used to remember the straight razor, you'd bang them on the curb, get them rusty, put them in the rain barrel, get them rusty.
No, I don't know. Does anybody here, you have older relatives, remember getting your knives rusty in barrels? All this stuff is so strange to me. But anyway, this might be the original Biden, says David Pryor. Yeah, I kind of thought this might be Beau Biden in a deep fake. Because, these deep fake masks aren't even masks. That's kind of a misnomer. It's an entire hood and chest piece. And I saw Biden getting his second or third or fourth booster today, and he had some pretty robust arms. I mean, I think he's Beau Biden, who would be, 50 by now? If that, maybe 48, 49. But anyway, let me play a little bit more. Yeah, Biden was an 80s chain fighter.
And I looked at him, but I was smart then. I said, first of all, I said, when I tell you to get off the board, you get off the board, and I'll kick you out again, but I shouldn't have called you Esther Williams. I apologize for that.
Anyway, one other thing about him. The eyes are so deep set. It looks very Halloween-y to me. And despite all that, I don't know. Something about it's not just the eyes, but the skin. It just looks like rubber to me. I'm sorry. It looks like rubber. Does anybody else think this guy looks like he's made out of rubber? It just doesn't look that real to me. But they only show you fake. I guess I'd have to see him standing next to a real person to really see, but it just looks so fake to me. Angst G says Corn Pop was much worse than the Tricks Rabbit. Jordan says he was the gangster in the Beat It video. Well, who's playing Biden now? I don't know, but someone sent me a convincing lead here. Someone had said, look at Keanu Reeves. There's a story that even kind of connects it. And so, yeah, Keanu Reeves and Joe Biden do have a similar vacancy in their eyes and same skull shape. But does it fit the narrative structure? I don't know. I still think the best explanation is Beau Biden. If anybody's playing the role of Joe, it's Beau. Fake died at 46, came back to be president at 46. Real dad goes and retires. I think it's likely. And I was looking at old VP Biden, comparing him to President Biden. And when I put Beau Biden in the middle, President Biden's skull looks like Beau Biden's skull, does not look like Vice President Biden's skull. Salty Siren says the Keanu Reeves one's very convincing. Yep. Hey, look at this one. Pharmaceutical billionaire's son buys a $33 million mansion after pocketing $10 billion on the vaccine rollout. Not bad. Here's a headline from The Atlantic. The world is splitting in two. Separate events are accelerating a shift that is transforming global politics. Again, this is the crack. And again, Pluto, 1776. No coincidences. And the big split is, are we going in the direction of 1776, independence, freedom, whatever that was, or 1619? And this is I think there's a split here because the advocates of the 1619 project are not with Western chauvinism whatsoever. So Western chauvinism is the Titanic. It's the planet heading towards the comet. It's the Titanic heading towards the iceberg. That's the story we've been seeing here. The world splitting in two. Okay, Blue Sky, out of the blue, says, I think Biden is Prince Harry and Kamala is Meghan. Now, that would be some first-class acting. Now, David says, first America's cracked, now the world. Well, let me mention this too. Because as we were leading up to 2022, making these connections between Pluto's return, and the release of the Kraken, Biden is then distributing crack pipes, if you recall. The Biden crack pipe panic is going to get people killed. Here we go. Biden to fund crack pipes. Yeah, because they don't think you're smart enough to smoke crack without their help. And they don't want you to share crack pipes because they wouldn't want someone to catch COVID from your crack pipe. It's like, how about let's not have crack addicts be enabled here? But anyway, the crack pipe story was unbelievable. And I'm like, why would the President of the United States insist that we give crack pipe, like $30 million on crack pipe kits? Now, that's not specifically what they are. They're drug smoking kits, but they are what they are. New York Times explaining the claim about Biden's crack pipes. They have to actually try to talk it down. New York Times, uproar over crack pipes puts Biden's drug strategy at risk. So they said it's harm reduction. So you're not likely to catch COVID if you're not sharing crack pipes. Now, the fact checks are saying that they don't specifically fund crack pipes, but that's a bit of sophistry. They're literally putting crack pipes in everybody's pocket. FYI. But my point is, they're doing this right when the Kraken's about to be released. So I think it's more about the actual meme. It's more about the zeitgeist being painted up in a certain way than anything else. And by the way, I had a caller a bit ago bringing up Cracked magazine, and he said, you got to check this magazine out. This is a magazine that was all over the streets of New York leading up to 9/11, and most of the covers have some bizarre reference, predictive programming, foreshadowing for 9/11. So I'm going to show you, I'm just grabbing at random, 2 covers of Cracked magazine, and it looks like Mad Magazine, one of these types. Okay, so here's one. It says cracked building. We need new quarters. Now that's not the Twin Towers, but it's one building and it looks like it's divided in 2 and it says cracked. Kind of a 9/11-y, but this one's more overt. This one has a plane crashing into a buildings falling, and there's a crack in the ground, and it says earthshake. This issue is a complete disaster. And again, the crack in the ground right between his feet. All right, let me see. I'm going through your comments. Angst G says it'll be a Hunter Biden branded crack pipe. I don't even believe the guy necessarily even has to be really a crack smoker. It could all be story. Although I've seen his teeth. I don't understand Hunter Biden. I really don't. I don't understand his obsession with photographing himself in these weird. It's not even good compromising material. It's just bizarre to me. And also, I'm like, why is this guy who's in his 50s taking these pictures and posting them like he's some kind of OnlyFans celebrity? Like, nobody wants to see Hunter Biden OnlyFans. Yeah, Jenny Thomas wanted to release the Kraken. Just to stay on topic, we're talking about this idea of something being released. A Kraken kills Bezos. Bezos' employees are being evacuated from Amazon because of a, quote, wave. Now it's a crime wave. Now there's a dead giveaway that something is going to go down, because there was a PBS documentary called The Bombing of Seattle, and I used to draw attention to it a lot because it contained so much predictive programming, and it was episode number 113. The thing is, it had something about drills conducted in a stadium, and they were using, I believe, blimps or something. Anyway, it's a fascinating video, and if you searched Bombing of Seattle, or if you searched Seattle 113, that would be the first thing to come up. And I'd reference this video frequently. It was pbs.org, and they pulled it. They got rid of it. It got removed from the search results. They removed it, and I'm like, why would they do that? I wonder why. Anyway, I'll probably find it and dig it back up. It's a little late now, but I think we're on to something. Again, Jeff Bezos being devoured by a Kraken. Very significant, and this is in Inside Job on Netflix. And everything on Netflix comes true, if you haven't noticed. Finbar says, I used to read Cracked magazine all the time. Shows you how pervasive the predictive programming is. Comics, movies, everything. All right, let us continue. This was all started by Zuckerbug's artwork here, where it's got a penguin on a whale with what looks like a 50 cal shooting right into the eye of the Kraken, and it says IPS Kraken the code. And we're going to go deeper. I am very serious and methodical about this. We're not shooting from the hip. This media deconstruction is outside of the realm of hate speech or conspiracy conjecture. It's actually an advanced form of film criticism, but we're actually taking our critique to the world stage itself and taking a meta script view here. And there is a script, there is no doubt. If you have any doubts at all, I would point you to a video I watched the other day, in addition to any of our videos here. But there was a video by Quantum of Conscience I referenced a few weeks ago, where he went through the connections between the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and JFK. And these are beyond coincidence. And it's just one example, one area, but it's a major one, where if you're going to say these are all coincidences, you end up in the realm of coincidence theory, where you got to come up with a very good coincidence theory to explain all of these connections. All right, let's see what else we have. We've been talking about Will Smith and the slapping. Well, check this out. Apparently Hulk Hogan said something. Hulk Hogan might have indicated that he spotted a fake slap. And he would know. Hulk Hogan's strong no-sell comment has Hulkamaniacs questioning Will Smith's Chris Rock smackdown. Professional wrestling superstar Hulk Hogan weighed in on the SmackDown. Quote, strong, no sell by Chris, Hogan said, with no further explanation. Bleacher Report defines no sell in wrestling as the act of not reacting to an opponent's move. This could either be part of a gimmick or it could be a sign of disrespect. Rock's head swung back after he was struck, but he remained upright and clear-headed. Wow, the funny man said, Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me. Hogan's fans on Twitter believe the conflict was staged to bolster ratings. If you slow-mo and watch Will's footwork, you see his left foot hit the floor right at the second of impact, one Hulkamaniac claimed. Yeah, that's pretty much what I saw as well. Others said that Smith has turned heel, which kind of seems like it could be the case. They're going to have to go send him to live with his auntie and uncle in Bel Air. Now, heel is a wrestling term for a character that's turned villain. So that's kind of what's going on. A designated bad guy here. It's just a role. Again, he admitted it in his speech. He said, life imitates art. Right. Oh, let's see here. Joe Rogan's Flaming Joe. Apparently Joe Rogan has some kind of hemp-infused energy drink. So you have this, and you got Mike Tyson's Evander Holyfield weed ears. But I thought this is interesting here. You know, you got this thing that's called Flaming Joe. And I think what it says here, it's a clean energy beverage is what he's calling it. And I'm wondering, I'm looking at a pattern. And I'm thinking, are they changing the types of drugs that we do, energy drinks, and that kind of thing, to calm us, not calm us down, but to get people more integrated into the metaverse? Like maybe they don't want you running around and polluting. So they're going to get you a different sort of energy drink. Maybe take the sugar out and combine it with THC so you can be comfortable with your head fully immersed in your CGI paradise. I mean, I don't trust anything that guy gets behind. I happen to think he's consciously taking a fall. You know, they actually regulate Spotify a bit now because of Joe. And I did predict that back when Joe was first called out to be canceled. And back then it was for sexism. They just kept digging until they found something they thought would stick. OG Fepe says, any mainstream YouTube channel pushing the slap is real are outing themselves as paid influencers. Yeah, I'd say so. Got a comment from Paulyboy77. He said, Tim, you know that Stavely goes on eBay and other places looking for misprints to buy? And then he says, they changed the originals to full people. I know I've had misprints from eBay. I received a Hornby train set, and on one box it said Hernby. So Paulyboy77 doesn't think that Hernby trains is a Mandela effect. He thinks it's a, quote, misprint. What a sheep. Obviously it's a Mandela effect. That's how they usually approach these things. But no, apparently Stavely's been buying misprints. Man, that's like faking relics. You know, it's unconscionable. Like imagine if you had a priest at a church and he rigged up the statue of the Virgin so during prayer she actually weeps. And it's just some contraption. And it's just like water pouring out of the eyes or something. Like, that's messing with people's heads. Fake miracles. And here we have it. Fake miracles. Hey, I have a side note here. This is noteworthy, though. Steve Pashenik, major QAnoner. He would go on to the Alex Jones program and hype up Q, hype up the Kraken, hype up the idea that all of the ballots were watermarked and that the election was just a sting to take out the bad guys. Well, anyway, Pashenik has a history of lying. And he claims that he worked through the national security bureaucracy, classified positions. But anyway, I didn't know this. He emerged in the 80s as an expert on the psychology of hostage taking, and in the 90s, he launched a series of novels with Tom Clancy. So Steve Pashenik, major QAnon pusher, is co-authoring books with Tom Clancy, who wrote so many of the psyops that we've been living through. I mean, this guy's a meta-scripter on the level of 9/11, COVID, Dark Winter. All these things are in the purview of Tom Clancy. And for Pashenik, a major QAnoner and InfoWars guy, to be connected with Clancy, yep, we're looking at Metascript pushing agents. All right, let me go through my notes here. And I want to hit the headlines up as well. We already talked about this. Senator Bruce Bostelman couldn't tell it was a joke meme when somebody suggested that they needed litter boxes for the furries. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and go through my voicemails. That's what I cut off here. I had a voicemail from, I think, John.
COVID anymore. See, we thought that that chapter was over and that we were going into World War III. What they're trying to do is set up the story for the whole ISS thing to happen, which is really going to implant in everyone's head that if they don't go get their booster, that everything's going to fall down, that they're going to fall down if they don't get their booster because...
Ooh, nice one. Okay, so let me recap that. The first time the space station was publicly hit by space junk, where they actually did a big story on it, it was like this summer. They had a mission called Celestial Immunity, where the astronauts were vaccinating each other and testing the efficacy of vaccines in space. During that mission, the space station's arm, it has an arm, it was hit by a piece of space junk, and it had a hole in it, so it was punctured in its arm. So we were saying, hey, celestial immunity. Space station got vaxxed. And then I started pointing out the correlation between outer space and inner space. Your circulation, our collective circulation, and then outer space and orbit. And they've been correlating space junk, as in something's contaminating orbit, with the virus. Something's contaminating, or there's a contaminant in your circulation that must be expunged or removed. So the space station being vaxxed was the theme here. Space station's arm. Now again, this is just a correlation between outer space and inner space. So on May 12th, a routine inspection of a robotic arm on the ISS revealed a 5 millimeter wide hole in its thermal covering. According to the Canadian Space Agency, the robotic arm, Canadarm2, was hit by a piece of orbital debris. Now again, the mission was called Celestial Immunity. What is celestial immunity? I have a few clips on it here. I'll just play a short little note here. But it's mostly about vaccines and getting vaxxed in space.
The Celestial Immunity Investigation evaluates the effects of gravity on functional immune response. NASA astronauts Mark Vande Hei and Megan MacArthur performed activities to prepare for the investigation's 3-week run. The investigation uses lymphocytes, a type...
Wow, that looked fake. Hold on. I just saw something waving around and it shouldn't be.
MacArthur performed activities to prepare for the investigation's 3-week run.
Anyway, they're doing science in space. Now, let me show you this. The Aliens Among Us, and this is an Economist cover from August of 2020. The Aliens Among Us, How Viruses Shape the World. This is where I noted this very strong correlation between outer space and inner space. So what you're looking at here is inner space. You got your AIDS, you got your COVIDs, got some T cells. Anyway, this is inner space, but it looks like a moon, some planets, some rockets, and a satellite. The Aliens Among Us, How Viruses Shape the World. So the virus is being correlated with an alien invader, and therefore the carrier of the alien invader is the alien. The unvaxxed are the aliens among us. The ones who are shaping the world are the threats that have to be countered. They have to make the world safe because of the alien invasion. So in this sense, the anti-vaxxers are the aliens because they are the super spreaders. And they spread the information that leaves other people open to being inhabited by aliens. Now, these are internal aliens. And then let me add on to this a couple of things. One, the very first vaccine for COVID was called Sputnik 5. And it was released the same day that out of Russia a movie came out called Sputnik about aliens that enter through the bloodstream, take over basically a parasitic symbiotic relationship. A very unhealthy relationship because it causes you or the possessed person to crave the blood of extremely terrorized people. That's called Sputnik. Just another connection. Here's another one. The very first UFO crash landing was Roswell, a place called Corona Field. I went there during the first lockdown with my first stimmy check, and yeah, it's called Corona Field. So there you have it, the first alien Corona Field, first alien crash or whatever. And then Men in Black, you have Corona Park as one of the main areas where the alien thing happens, and you have a big Space Needle thing there. Now, I'm going to have to watch this movie. I admit I didn't watch it because a lot of people that annoyed me liked it, but I might have to go watch it. It looks like it might be good, and there's a few clips that I've seen. I might watch it tonight because it probably ties into everything. Now that I'm seeing Corona Park, Space Needle, something's up here. Salty says, outer space has always looked microscopic to me. Outer space, inner space, and if you want to know what's at the furthest reaches of the universe, or if you want to look at the furthest reaches of inner space, like micro and macro, you have to go to the experts. Okay, so we're talking about this inner space, outer space thing. Alien invaders as internal. Just a reoccurring theme. Fascinating little area, though, of really the Psywar, where they have made these connections consistently. That way you're fearing the anti-vaxxer as this alien threat. All predictive programming. None of this stuff is coincidental. Let me see, I'm going through some comments here. Van Gogh says, I thought they'd use these rigged elections to push the blockchain to vote because of the decentralized open source ledger, but I've been wrong. You may be right. We'll see. Grangerman says, I just looked up magazine number 113, and it has a corona pooping out of box on cover. Let me take a look. I think you meant popping out of box on cover. Okay. Mad 113, and it does have a corona-like thing popping out of a jack-in-the-box, and it has a UFO on the side of the jack-in-the-box. So it's got the UFO thing, it's got the corona thing, and it's got the 113. Very interesting. Well, who's ready for the aliens? And I can just looking here, I'm seeing aliens all over this thing. All right, let us continue going through my headlines here at. Now, I've been doing these morning live streams, and that's meant to be daily. And I'm going to open it up to calls. I have some people in other parts of the world that want to call in. So I'll be opening up Skype for that purpose as well. Here are the Hollywood celebrities to blame when you're facing starvation due to lack of energy. Fertilizers for farming. Okay, yes. The ones who are causing global warming. You want to know who the main offenders are? Not a coincidence. Let me bring this up. Why is Leonardo DiCaprio the face of Don't Look Up, a major climate change movie? That is the subtext. It's about a comet hitting the Earth, but no, it's actually about global warming hitting the Earth. Listen to the scientists. Listen to the agoraphobe who's scared because the sky is falling. So you're supposed to believe this guy in real life is a climate change warrior trying to stop the polluters. No, he's got a massive carbon footprint despite his tiny baby feet. I mean, everybody knows this by now. about Leonardo DiCaprio. Major climate hypocrite. Don't look up his record on his pollution, on his carbon footprint. But Leonardo DiCaprio, major polluter, major offender, and yet here he is during these movies playing these roles where he's somehow against climate change. He's for the science. So what gives? Why would you play a role and then live a way that's completely opposite? Why would you be such a hypocrite in public? Well, I think it's intentional. He's playing the role of a hypocrite. He's playing the role of a polluter, of an unsustainably wealthy person whose carbon footprint, you really can't have that because it's going to inadvertently punish everybody else. But these are intentional. And I think this also relates to why so many of these gun grabbing types do movies where they're constantly using guns. But they overdo it with the guns. Look at The Matrix. Now, The Matrix is also significant in this respect because here you have a movie that's blamed like 3 weeks after the movie comes out. You have the Columbine shooting. So these things are correlated. And the Columbine shooters are dressed like characters out of The Matrix. Not a coincidence. The trench coat mafia. My point being, the people behind these movies, like the Wachowskis, they're way against guns. They are terrified of right-wing militias and gun owners. So why do they have these movies where they make guns one of the main features of the film? I think it's to scare people about guns, to exaggerate how powerful they are. So to me, it's sort of like this here. It's sort of an intentional hypocrisy here. Copaesthetic says April, the 4th month of the year, usually considered the 2nd month of spring. 4-2. Hey, I'm looking at 4-4. Jackie Jack says, I'll come back for a replay with a notepad. Great info. Hey, yeah, check this out, by the way. If you go to conspiratained.com or even conspiratainment.live, I have a news site here, which also mirrors my live streams. So it looks like here there's about 20 people listening on the radio player. So if you just want the audio, and I do get replays through there as well. But anyway, one of the new things that I've started doing is transcripts. Now, they're not perfectly edited. I have to go through them later. But someone mentioned taking notes. So if you go to the Conspiratainment blog, you do find my archives there. I mean, I post them everywhere I can. But this is just another place. And a couple of things. One,
I try to make the best choices for my family and
the podcast player there has transcripts on the screen, but we also have the daily transcripts posted. And I did this for search engine optimization because we're constantly saying things that, like we're using words, memes, that the media uses as well. And they like to take things and then put it in their context, and I like to compete. Like, I really resent the fact that conspiracy theorist has been replaced with conspiracist. I'm a conspiracist. I mean, clever word games, but you see what they do there. So yes, I'm doing my best to optimize for search engines, all of the podcast content, and also to make it more searchable. If you search Infinite Plane Radio, you can't help but find us, and that was intentional because despite having lost 120 channels on YouTube, we're still eminently findable. Grangerman says Mad Magazine number 119 has McCloskey on the cover. Let me take a look. Also, I have a newsletter, which I highly recommend. I think we have 41 issues out so far. If you go to my Twitter account, twitter.com/realtimosman, and right below my Twitter profile, there's a sign-up box where you can get on the newsletter. Weekly newsletter of Infinite Plane Radio. Again, I'll put a link to that as well. It's on review. And it says weekly, but usually it's a few times a week. We're on issue number. Next one's number 42. But if you look here at just some of the headlines, let me go ahead and bring a few of these up. Bat out of Wuhan the world's simulation, Moonfall review, Metascript analysis, Pluto returns on Tuesday, Russia threatens to shoot the space station. Anyway, anything that's interesting going on, I tend to do a newsletter on. There's about 40 of them here, all of them with links. We have receipts for every claim we make here. And if we make a claim and it sounds outrageous, it's probably something we've fact-checked and double fact-checked. Because you can have 1,000 points that make your case, but you have one thing that goes against it, and that's the thing that they will hone in on. Take a look at this here. Welcome to a world without rules, says the poster here. This is Batman in front of a building, and the bat-shaped hole burnt into the building looks very 9/11-y, not a coincidence. Batman and Joker are constantly used in all the major transformative psyops. They represent order and chaos. Of course, the police response to the mass shooters, they're always showing up in their Batman costumes. And also the bat as Phoenix, a burning bat. The Phoenix represents the burning down and building back better formula. It's the same thing with the dove. Noah's dove shows up after the flood. So for this present reset, it's not the Phoenix, they're not burning things down. We're not being flooded. It's not the dove, it's the bat. And the bat, of course, is the catalyst for the reset, the bat-borne virus. All of this predicted in the artwork of all these different movie posters and comics. All right, let me continue. Again, O.J. Simpson says he understands where Will Smith was coming from. We've been talking about the Illuminati Venus Lucifer slap ritual. Again, so many interesting little connections here between all these characters. Specifically, though, the one that fascinates me the most is Denzel Washington showing up and being called out as Macbeth, thereby invoking the Macbeth curse. But King Macbeth, King Richard, laughing after the slap, very interesting. All right, there's all kinds of weirdness with the QAnoners. I almost don't want to get into it. Twitter brutally mocks QAnon prophet blessing 3 Oregon GOP candidates. It's getting very culty. And I'm also noticing a lot of talk about the border, and that only happens near the election. And they get everybody chanting, build the wall, build the wall. And then after the election, everybody forgets about the border. Polecat78 says, thanks Saturn for IPS sanity. Yeah, there are a few channels out there where you do have a post-worldview perspective. A lot of people do call it BS. And what I think separates us is that we maintain the think tank, which is essentially a forum, a platform where anybody can say anything uncensored so we can pull together our information. Because I look at this thing as a puzzle with 1,000,000 pieces. And I'd rather have 1,000 people working on it with me. And that's been our approach for a few years now. And when I started this channel, I didn't know anything about I didn't know how deep it went as far as I picked up on things here and there. But I used to jokingly say that there's no meaningful distinction to be made between the news media and Hollywood. And eventually I realized, okay, that's not even a joke. That's just a starting point here. All right, let us continue. Again, Clarence Thomas's wife, interesting character, but this is kind of a counterpoint to the new Supreme Court justice. They're just showing the polarization of the parties. But here we have Clarence Thomas's wife telling Clarence to release the Kraken. So major QAnoner there. We're looking at what looks to be a new Watergate, so that should be interesting. Yeah, unfortunately they took down 3 of our channels, but one place you can go where you'll never miss anything is SoundCloud. Here's a link. We had a caller the other night, I think it was SpongeBob. He had an interesting story about Nazi werewolves. You won't want to miss it. Sandy Hook families seek Alex Jones's arrest. Now, they're not going to get that, but Alex Jones is being fined right now $25,000 per day until he shows up at some deposition. Now, he gets it back at the end, but it just kind of shows you that they're really trying to make the point that if you call a hoax, there will be repercussions. And look, that's another reason why I'm going back to my old job, because I want to double down on our unfiltered, unmasked speech. I don't want to backtrack. I don't want to kowtow to the communist terms of service just to stay afloat. I think quite the opposite. So if we have all of the channel's operating costs covered by something unrelated to the channel, then it remains pure and free. Because what we're trying to do here is we're maintaining a level of honesty that's practically illegal right now. Okay, next voicemail.
Hey, Tim. This is Leslie, the astrologer in New York. How are you? I'm calling to leave you a voicemail, but it's not to be played, please, online.
Okay, I'll stop that right now. And okay, so let me go ahead and go through this voicemail. Fascinating. I'm looking at the transcripts. It's a 3-minute long voicemail, and then it continues on for another 40 seconds. I'm not going to play it live because then the person won't ever call back again. We don't want that. Appreciate the message, and I'll definitely go through it. And then I'll comment on it if anything else comes out of it. Definitely appreciate that very much. Okay, it's been a great evening. I did want to put this out there one more time because now is the time because of the heat on the Trumps right now. Here's a link in the chat. I can say confidently that I doxed the real Q. This is a fact, verifiable, easy to see, undeniable, and now I think might be the time for this to get out there. So if you want to see Q, and this is just going to make things very interesting for us, for this channel in particular. If you want to see Q tossed in prison, Q is real. Q is presently committing felonies, is buddies with Don Jr., with Ivanka. They all know who he is. I have proof of that right here. And we could have this person indicted. Q is real. Q is a Trump confidant, an insurrectionist. Whether or not you think or know about how fake 1-6 was, it doesn't matter from this perspective because we're just looking at the fact that our channel has been severely messed with by somebody hired by our government. This guy's DOD or something. And so I have everything that I need to actually have this guy indicted on felony identity theft, cyber. I mean, it's crazy what he's done. But I made a good record of it, and I can back everything that I've said. Again, marcusgoldfinch.icu. Share that if you will, because the sooner this gets out, the better things are for everybody. And when I say fun, basically my intention is I feel like everything's been dammed up for a couple of years. A lot of the suppression on this channel is all going to be released at once. Our meme pool is a reservoir. It's a big dam. It's cracking. So we want to release the crack in here. Anyway, thanks for joining, everyone. This is 33rd Degree by Lucifer Tim. Same time tomorrow. Actually, probably earlier and possibly in the morning.